He's an MEP, of course. 0345 6060 973. So much more to talk about on this topic. Very good morning to Abbas in Redbridge.
Hi there, good morning, Matt.
Hi.
I think a lot of people are concerned, and I think, certainly those who are easily recognisable to be different are perhaps more concerned. Like yourself, my wife's great-grandmother was a Holocaust survivor, her great-great-grandmother fed parts of her own body to her grandmother so she could make it through the Holocaust. And so I'm quite aware of the history and how it still plays, for example, on her mind, because she sees this bigotry. And she says to me, that's exactly what we used to say in Germany, from her parents and her grandmother, it won't never happen here. It's just words, it's just this, it's just the media, it's just this. But things have a nasty way of, it becomes a very slippery slope. What is politically incorrect or, let's say, abusive one day slowly and subtly becomes accessible and acceptable another day. And things progressively, become worse and worse. And then I don't think, hopefully, we'd ever get to a stage where, God forbid, we'll ever see gas chambers in Europe again. But, Yugoslavia was not that many years ago.
I've been to Bosnia. I tell you, I've been to Bosnia. It's one of the most harrowing experiences of my life going to Bosnia, because you see row upon row of grave upon grave, bone white coloured graves, white even against the snow. And they're all with the same date, the same year. People just killed. In fact, I was killed for their ethnic identity, really. And I was there I was in Kosovo a few months ago. And again, this time you're driving through the countryside, beautiful sunny evening this time in the summer, early summer, May I think it was. And you see there on either side of the road, you see gravestones. And those gravestones were, I imagine, where people were simply shot down where they stood, or maybe dumped, having been killed, right on the frontier there between Kosovo and Albania. And that's not a long time ago. Tony Blair is a hero in those parts of the world.
Right. And the thing is, Matt, that, that was in Europe, and Europe pretty much stood by and allowed that to happen for, what was it, a year or 18 months, 2 years? Possibly, I think, even a bit longer, until eventually the Americans started bombing and the whole thing came to a halt. But, we learnt of rape houses where women were raped by 8, 10, 15 soldiers every night. And these things were happening, and yet we stood by, we allowed those things to happen. And so the worrying thing is, where might this type of rhetoric end up? And I think there's a famous saying about those who don't learn from history are condemned to repeat it. I think humankind is foolish enough, quite frankly, not to learn from history, that these things always result in something very nasty, something very dark.
Abbas, I want to ask you a difficult question, because I believe that you've told us in the past that you support some aspects of Sharia law. Is that right?
Yeah, but most people, Matt, don't even understand what Sharia law is. Sharia law simply means that from the Qur'an and the example of the Prophet, you derive a legal system of morality and how you live, basically.
But hang on a second, because you and I, both, I imagine, citizens of this country, the United Kingdom, and I think comments like that probably upset a lot of people listening, and possibly contribute to a sense of people uniting around what are seen as traditional British values. Our legal system, of course, is part of that. Do you understand why? Do you understand why supporting Sharia law might actually be part of a problem in some ways?
You see, Matt, the problem that people have is that they do not understand what Sharia law is. If you get the Daily Mail's interpretation of Sharia law, then I would be opposing those very same things often that they talk about. That is not Sharia law. Most of British law, you'll be surprised to learn, is actually Sharia law. So, for example, Sharia law would be about looking after the disabled. Sharia law would be about providing for those who don't have jobs or who have illnesses, providing medical care, having the road safe for your community. All of these things would actually fall within Sharia law.
Abbas, we don't need another legal system to run in parallel with our own legal system. Much as the Daily Mail might attack the judiciary, enemies of the people, as they described them the other day after the High Court decision to give Parliament a say on triggering Article 50. Nonetheless, we have our own legal system. We don't need Sharia law or any other type of law. Jewish law, Iranian law, Australian law. We've got British law.
Yes, but Matt, nobody is trying to impose. It's a very small minority of people who are not observing the very Sharia law, which says that when you are in a country, a foreign country, you are obliged to follow the laws of that country.
But why do you need another law then? Why do you need Sharia law if it's going to be if it actually itself calls for observation of British law?
Well, because I'll give you an example. What is the British law about my dietary sensibilities?
I'm going to let you continue.
So basically, as a Jew, for example, you have to eat kosher. That is from the Sharia of Judaism.
You don't actually have to eat kosher. Jews come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes, and I'm a half Jew.
I'm talking about observant Jews who observe the Torah. They have to observe the Sabbath. They have to observe kosher meat. This is from their Sharia. This is from their legal jurisprudence of how they should abide by their religious laws. In Islam, we have to eat halal food. It doesn't mean that I impose my Sharia upon you, Matt. You are free to do what you want to do. Now, if, for example, there is something within the Sharia that I am being forced not to observe, so, for example, the Sharia says to me as a Muslim, I should pray 5 times a day. If British law said to me, no, we're not allowing any mosques in England, and you cannot pray, if we catch you praying anywhere, we'll arrest you. Under those circumstances, I'm allowed to pray secretly. Or I should make hijrah. I should leave the country and go to a place where I can practice my religion. Do
you see any clash between British law and Sharia law, the Sharia law that you follow? Because I do get this. But I've made a film. I made a film with an Orthodox rabbi, and he certainly follows certain Jewish laws, but I don't think they would clash with the law of the land. And I guess that's what you're saying as well, is it, Abbas?
There is absolutely nothing in the Sharia that actually goes against British laws. So for a Muslim who wishes to abide by the Sharia laws, which is effectively, the word Sharia unfortunately has been changed to mean something like, for example, you steal a loaf of bread, you grab his arm and you chop his arm off before he has a chance to blink. Well, first of all, that's not Sharia law, because the Sharia does not permit that type of thing. Secondly, you're not allowed to impose your Sharia upon the indigenous people or anyone else for that matter. So, for example...
So Abbas, just very quickly, because I'll give you a lot of time, but what do you make of this tweet? What do you make of this tweet? Hang on, Abbas, listen. Craig Walden says, people like this man do make me angry. There's no place for Sharia law in the UK, and anyone found practising it should be imprisoned. Seems very extreme to me, from Craig. But what do you say to Craig?
Well, if he'd like to be kind enough to tell me what part of the Sharia he feels is contradictory to British law or common decency or common integrity or honesty or the capacity to live in harmony, then I'd be quite willing to hear that. But there is nothing in the Sharia. I'm a Muslim. I've been practicing this religion for the last 48 years of my life, and I can tell you categorically that there is nothing within the Sharia that is actually contradictory to British law or what we would generally in consensus regard to be good manners or good etiquette. This notion about these clashes or clash between Islam and the West, if you look throughout history, when Salahuddin takes Jerusalem, there were Jews practicing Judaism, there were Christians practicing Christianity, there were Muslims practicing Islam. we can live in harmony. We don't have to force one another to
Abbas, we've got very, very diverted, but you've been very articulate. You've educated me to some extent. Just very briefly then, finally, in about 10 seconds, just reassure me that wearing a burqa then, you would not consider wearing a burqa as part of Sharia law?
The consensus of the scholars is predominantly that the face should not be covered. However, I offer the right to anybody to dress how they want to dress or do what they want to do, as long as they do not infringe on the liberties and infringe on the rights of others.
Abbas, thank you very much. We're going to have to continue this conversation another time, because that will not be a good enough answer for some listening, but you have made some important points, and thank you very much for taking the time to explain Sharia law. It's been fascinating. I know we've been diverted. We're going to get straight back very shortly to this question of nationalism and whether you think it's spreading like a virus across the West. 0345 6060 973. We're leading Britain's conversation together because this is LBC. I'm Matt Stadlen, and it's 2:45.
LBC